Oh, well, when people ask me about the paranormal experiences I had up here, I could kind of tell you that as a child, I never really was scared of ghosts. I didn't really get too scared if I went into a dark room or things like that, and I wasn't too jumpy. And when I first got this place, I walked down the hall with a video camera, and I was kind of noticing the video camera act a little bit funny when I was inside the building. And after I'd taken a bunch of pictures of the place, I was trying to document all of the debris that was in the building and had a bad shape that the place was in when I first got it. And when I took the camera home and started going through the film, I just noticed all kind of crazy things that was on film. It was like lightning bolts, all different colors in it, and orbs, and it looked like objects and apparition type things moving around. And I thought, boy, that's really odd. And then if you went a little further in the tape, and maybe where I was taping outside or taping around my house or inside my house, it was also on the same tape. It was clear as a bell. It was only when I was in this building. And I thought that was really odd. And from there, I think it was about a week after that, I got contacted from someone from the Fox network asking about Waverly, if it was haunted or not. I said, I don't know if it's haunted or not, but it says, I got this crazy tape you ought to see. So I mailed them the tape, and a week later they flew out from California, and the crew went through the building and stayed in here late at night, and they ran out. He says, this has got to be the creepiest place we've ever been in. He says, we saw all kinds of stuff in here. This has got to be the most haunted place we have ever seen. And then it was just a few months later, we were on the world's scariest places for the Fox network. And so that's how this all started.
Well, when we first got the place, we had no electricity up here. No, nothing. And we used to have to sit outside and do security to keep people out of the building. So a lot of times when it was cold or not, or hot even, it didn't matter, you'd sit in your car. So you'd have to post up different places. You'd have to go out front because there were several ways where people would come up. And the very first time, this was really, really strange. I'm sitting, I had a Beretta, Chevy Beretta. I got a little Yorkie. I'm sitting in the passenger seat. I got my dog, my husband, Charlie, sitting in the driver's seat. We're just sitting back. The grounds hadn't been cleaned up yet because there was stuff piled around everywhere, so you could pretty much hide behind anything. And we're sitting in the car, and all of a sudden I felt something playing with my hair. I mean, just like something's just stroking my hair. And I looked over because I thought it was Charlie. And Charlie's passed out in the seat, sound asleep. I mean, he's, And I'm like, I know I felt that. I know I did. So, well, kind of just let it go, forgot about it. Sitting back, just leaning back, watching, looking around. I felt it again. Wasn't Charlie. So, but a lot of people don't, if you haven't had this happen, you think it's crazy. But if you've had it happen, you understand. I'm sitting there and that happened. I'm wide awake, not even sleeping. And I don't know if you've ever, there's a difference between dreams and what I call visions. And I had a vision. I seen this woman in the building, and the building wasn't like it is now. It was like it must have been how it used to be. I never seen it the way it used to be. And I'm sitting at a vanity with a mirror, and my hair is done up old-timey. I see myself. And in the mirror, there was a woman that leaned over behind me, and her eyes were just kind of like lit up. Wasn't scary, but kind of a soft glow. And she leaned over and looked in the mirror at me and smiled. Well,
the best paranormal experience I've had is not sensational at all, but the reason that I think it's the best paranormal thing that's happened to me is that it felt so real. I was going in the building after a trespasser in the middle of the night. I knew somebody was in here because I saw lights moving around in the building. And so I was going down one of the halls, and I had a swept area in the hallway. So when you walk, you didn't crunch on all the little pieces of sand, that might be, on the floor. So you could walk real quiet. And I had a guy with me, and we were walking down the hall, and we kind of heard some voices. We heard footsteps, and we knew we were right on top of the people that were in the building. And we made signals to each other to kind of go around the people, and then we were going to run in and jump out and catch the people in the building. And when we did, there was no one there. And it's not a very sensational story, but it is so real. What happened was unbelievable. And at the same time it happened to me, it happened to the guy that was with me that came in the building to find these trespassers, and he was fooled too. And we believe that was our best paranormal experience, because we were hearing footsteps and voices and talking, and they were right inside a room, and when we go in the room after it, there's no one there.
I've seen a man in the building. I come up here one day, we had workers up here. There was no doors on the building, and we had taken, boards and plywood and all that and put it up to keep people from getting in the building. And I come up about 10 o'clock in the morning, and I had two guys here working. They had taken the plywood down. They were framing in around the door. And I come up and I came in. They were down in the morgue area by the dock. And I came in the door just to let them know I was here and see if they needed anything. And one guy was standing at a table saw with the morgue hallway behind him and facing out toward where I walked in the door. And the other guy was off to my right, and he was taking measurements and giving them to the other guy, so on and so forth. Well, anyway, as I'm standing there talking to this one guy, a man walked up behind him, looked me straight in the eye, and turned and walked down the hallway. Well, I have rules up here when people are working. You don't bring anybody here to work unless you clear it through me first. You don't go anywhere in the building except for where you're working. Well, I didn't recognize this person. And so I asked the one guy, I said, "Who was that?" Well, this guy freaked out in the place anyway. And I mean, he's looking behind him and yelling, "Who, what, where," and all this and that. I said, "There was a man just behind you. Did you all bring somebody here to work with you today?" And he went, well, he pointed at the other guy. And I could see him. And I'm like, "No, I know he's here." Anyway, I thought, well, maybe he thinks he's going to get in trouble because they brought somebody they shouldn't have brought without asking. Yeah. So I went and asked the other guy. I just kind of yelled over at him to bring anybody else in. No, he points at the other guy. Anyway, I'm like, "No." And I said, "Well, somebody's in the building." And they're like, "Tina, there couldn't be. We just got here right before you. We haven't left this spot. And there can't be anybody in here." And I said, "Well, maybe they broke in through another window. You didn't hear them. You had the table saw going. Somebody's in here." I mean, I saw him. He looked at me. He went down the hallway. And so I ran past him, went down the hallway. We had double doors with locks on them because we locked the building down in, areas. It was chained and locked. There was nowhere he could have went.
Well, I believe that any place where people have died, or a lot of people have died, maybe from war or pain or sickness, that there's a chance of some type of haunting. I just believe that it's possible, and I believe that in Kentucky that we're really not that much different from any state. But what I have noticed that in Kentucky that there is a lot of paranormal activity, and I believe that a lot of it has to do with is in this area there was a lot of sickness, and there was a lot of people who died through the Civil War here, and I believe that leads to some of the problem. Tuberculosis was very heavy in the Ohio Valley, and in the larger metro areas is where it was hit hardest, and so that's why we see so many tuberculosis hospitals around the Louisville area, and this was the largest one. And so when you think about the thousands of people who died a slow death knowing they were going to die, I can kind of understand, if the place was going to be haunted, it ought to be here at Tuberculosis Sanatorium, and I believe that Kentucky is really no different than other states, but I believe we have our share.
Been here going on 7 years. And there are, I guess, what people consider more active areas but I don't think it matters. Because some people get more activity in another area. It just depends on where they're at and what's happening. I think it's the whole building. I think it's outside. I mean, when we used to, like I said, when we used to park outside, we would see people walk up on the porch. You know, we'd sneak up, the flashlight, light it up, and nobody there. One night, me and Anthony were walking around the building before we got any security cameras. We had to walk around all the time, middle of the night. And we saw somebody come up from the body chute path. There was a man standing there. And Anthony stopped and he said, "There's somebody over there." I said, "Yeah, I see him." I said, "Well, they see us too. Let's just keep walking toward them and tell them they need to leave." They walked right through us. This man walked right through us. And we got cold pins and needles from head to toe. And we both stood there in shock, and like, what just happened?
Did he act or react to your presence there?
No. He was there, and all of a sudden you just felt something go, like they ran, almost like ran into you, and then there was nobody there. They were gone. And then we came around the body chute, and we heard this, it sounded like a little girl. And we heard a little girl say, "Hello." And then, you know, he looks at me and I look at him. Of course, I'm one of these people, I go, "Did you hear that?" And then, of course, I ask him. And he says, "Yeah." And I'm the type that'll say, "What'd you hear?" And he said, "It sounded like a little girl said hello." I said, "Well, that's what I heard." You know, I've been in the building. One night when we was working on some electrical work in here, they needed a piece of conduit. I save everything. I go around picking up everything because I know we're going to need it, you know. So, and, you know, low on money and, you know, really watching your pennies. Charlie needed a piece of conduit that had a bend in it. And I had put some down in the stairwell. And I said, wait, I think I know where there's a piece you need, just the same size, right size and everything. I'll go get it for you. Well, I never carry a flashlight. I walk around in the dark. So I go down the stairwell. Of course, it's pitch black. See things moving back there. They're here. And this is another thing. I don't mean to stop here. But when you talk about them, they come around. I'm down there and I'm feeling around because I can't see. I'm feeling around. And up from above me, of course, I'm the only woman up here. I hear a woman's voice say, "Tina." And I looked up the stairwell and I went, "Yeah." And excuse me, but then I went, "Oh, shit." And I ran out the door. You know, it scared me. And I will run again. It's not that I'm that scared of them. It's just a natural reaction.
Gotcha.
And yeah, and it catches you off guard. And then when it's over and you left, you're like, "Ooh, why did I do that? I'm not going to do that next time." But you will. Yeah. Yeah. Seen a little girl right up here one day. I was outside. I heard like a kid giggling. And I'm like, "I hear that? What is that?" So I came from the building, stepped inside the building, and I was just standing and listening. And I heard it again. I'm like, "My God, there's a kid in here." So I tried to follow where it came. I came up this stair right here, and I walked out onto here, and I saw a little girl run from there. I didn't see the front of her. It was just the back. Seen her run across here, out through this doorway, and out to the breezeway. So I went after her. Never seen her again. She had long brown hair, and it wasn't kinky curly, but it was like in real soft ringlets. It was probably down to about her waist. She had on a blue dress, no sleeves, and barefooted. That's how well I saw her.
And when I first bought the place, there wasn't a thing in my head thinking about haunted or ghost or anything else. It was just an old building that had a lot of history that my dad cared a whole lot about that we wanted to try to restore. But what we have come up with, and it's kind of a hokey type of saying, but what I'm saying to people is that I'm not really rebuilding this building. The ghosts in it are. Because if it wasn't for the paranormal activity in this building, we wouldn't have raised all the money we've raised to restore it. And so it sounds kind of funny, but and a little hokey, but really I say that the past residents are really the people who are restoring this building. And people come from all over the world just to see the paranormal activity up here. And I've got to admit that I have experienced nothing like this anywhere else.
Waverly's not just a building. It's not the way it feels. It's like it's alive. She calls who she wants. You know, we've had a lot of volunteers. A lot of people walk through here and come and go. But the ones that stay are the ones that think the building wants or needs, or there's a purpose for them here.